We are here today to talk about ways to thrive in a tough economy. And Steve Anderson is a master on this topic, having helped numerous companies to survive in challenging times. Steve is a man with many accomplishments. He is a gifted psychologist. He has an MBA. He developed a very successful company, author of 3 books, etc., etc. But the thing that makes Steve really extraordinary is that he really understands how the human brain works and how companies are successful when they help their people utilize all of their brain power. I've worked with Steve for 3 years and have great admiration for his work in executive coaching and leadership development. Please help me welcome Steve Anderson.
Tornado! I woke up from a deep slumber and looked at my wife's terrified eyes. Tornado, she said, with that boom, the largest sound I've heard in my whole life, as our house was struck by an F3 tornado and tore the side off of our house. I looked at my wife and I said, we have to get the children. We ran in their bedroom and they were both sitting up in their beds sobbing. We each grabbed a child into our arms and grabbed them and ran out into the living room where we were going to go down the stairs. And I looked, and the wall was gone. Imagine going out into your homes tonight and seeing what I saw that night. Glass insulation, 2x4s, nails, everything was in my house. Rain was coming into the house. All the furniture was flipped over against the far wall. I sat there in shock and held my daughter Molly and ran down to the basement, and my wife held Julie. We went down to the basement. Soon we realized the tornado was over, and we went upstairs to survey the damage. As we sat there and we looked at this devastation and we made sure that everybody was okay, there was a knock at the door. And my neighbor said, Steve, my sister is hurt. Come, we need your help. So I ran through the neighborhood. There was no lights on. I was in my pajamas. It was 2 in the morning on November 10th, 1998 in Columbia, Missouri. We ran through the neighborhood to her house. There were sirens going. All the lights were out, obviously. There was many destroyed homes. I ran into my neighbor's house, and she had been in the southwest corner of the room, which was where the tornado came from, and was trying to get out of her room when she saw it, and the window exploded into her back. And a very large piece of glass went into her thigh all the way to the femur. And she was laying on the floor bleeding when I got there. We quickly got candles and towels, and she held the candles so I could see, and we applied direct pressure, thank goodness for my Boy Scout training, applied direct pressure until the paramedics could arrive, which was 30 minutes. And trust me, 30 minutes on a night when you're doing something like that is very scary. But there were sirens blaring and many people were hurt. And so finally they arrived, and she did not die that night. She credited myself and her sister with saving her life. In fact, no one in our neighborhood died, but many people were seriously injured. I went back to my house and I walked into my house. I opened the front door and I see the backs removed. And my wife and 2 children, who were, Molly and Julie were 5 and 10, were standing in the living room. And this feeling of everything that I care about is standing here, and they're surrounded by devastation. And I walked up, I got down on one knee, and I held my family. And as I shed tears, I thought to myself, I just lost my house, but I still have my home. What is your home? What do you hang on to when the storms of your life hit? I suggest to you that that is a big piece of how you survive a tough economy like we're in right now. People that lead don't worry about the result as much as the process of helping other people, making a difference. So here's what I feel authenticity is. Here's what, what's your name?
Debbie.
Debbie, when Debbie said you got to be you, What I feel that is when our thoughts, behaviors, and emotions are integrated into one. So if you look at our logo, it's a triangle. Integrated leadership systems is thoughts, behaviors, and emotions are one. Now I want to warn you, when you set these goals, you're going to run into obstacles. And I ran into one a few years ago. I mean, I like being a father like eating a good steak. And my daughter Molly was 5 at the time. And she was laying beside me. She was a very cuddly child. And I was reading her The Lion King. And she's laying down, and I can feel her warm breath on my neck. And I got all choked up. I was like, it just doesn't get any better than this as a parent. And I closed the book, and I got choked up, and I said, Molly, someday when you grow up and move away, I'm really going to miss these times. And she said, oh, don't worry, Dad. And I said, why? And I thought she'd say, I'll remember this, or I'll come and visit you. And I said, why? And she said, you'll be dead. She always says I'm going to charge her royalties for that story, but true story. And you're going to run into surprises, though. But I want to tell you a story that's really inspiring about my other daughter, Julie. Julie was a heck of a runner. She ran in grade school and high school. And we trained together. I ran Toledo St. John's and at Ohio State. And she lost the city championship in the mile by this much, 3/100ths of a second in 6th grade. And she was beside herself. She went behind the stadium and crying, and I held her and I said, it's okay. You gave your best effort. And she stopped crying and she looked at me and said, that will never happen to me again. And I said, well, what are you going to do about it? So she went home and she wrote a goal. I will win the city championship in 7th grade. And she starts making a plan for how to achieve this goal. 12 years old, she runs 3 times a week for a year to prepare for this. Now I have to segue here for a minute and tell you that we both love the movie Gladiator. And in that movie, Russell Crowe's character is fighting in North Africa. And his trainer, Oliver Reed, says to him, do you want to go fight in Rome? And he says, I do. And he said, if you win the crowd, you will win your freedom. And Russell Crowe says, I will win the crowd. I will show them something they have never seen before. 20 minutes before the race now, we're stretching. I'm a psychologist, okay, so I want to get her head in the game. And she stands up to go to, they call her race, and so she's got to go. And I went up and put my hands on both sides of her face, and I said, go show them something they have never seen before. And she gets this look like, yeah. So she gets at the starting line. There's 16 girls in the race. They go around, and at the half mile, she's 8th. 3rd lap, she's up to 4th. She's coming around to me. I'm at the 300-meter mark, and she's about 30 feet behind the leader, and she's got 2 girls right in front of her. And I said, you have 300 meters left in your season, Julie. Go get her. And she took off like she was shot out of a cannon. And I was like, wow. She starts running around, and if you've ever run distance, trying to close the gap on the leader is exhausting after you've already run that far. And she's past these 2 girls, and she's catching this girl, and she's up to the curb. She's got 100 meters left, and I've come to the finish line to cheer her on. And she comes up on this girl's shoulder, and the girl looks at her like, where did you come from? I thought I had this race run. And she said, Dad, I looked in her eyes, and I said to myself, I am not losing this race. And she starts pulling down and she pulls ahead, and then the other girl pulls ahead, and she pulls ahead, and then the other girl, and Julie got her at the tape. And I went out, and I got down on one knee, and I held my daughter as her sweat-soaked body held me. She whispered in my ear, I did it, Dad. I did it. I've never been more proud as a father than I was that day. Fear's dominating, you're not leading. When passion or love is dominating, you're leading. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're sweeping the floor or you're the CEO. If you care a lot about the people that you're working with, you're leading. And I don't care what your IQ is or what your ability is, it's all about your heart.